Doom afternoon, everybody, and welcome to DNN, the Doomers News Network, where we don't sugarcoat it and we don't cheerlead. We just tell it how it is because somebody has to. As always, I am joined here by my friends Travis and Melody, and we have got a fantastic show for you today, as my buddy Travis will now explain to you. Travis, how are we doing today, buddy?
We are doing good today. Happy Saturday evening. And thank you guys for joining us. To the viewers, we have some exciting stuff to go over. Obviously, Jack is going to start with his patented This Week in Doom. And then Melody is actually going to talk about Hurricane Helene. She's actually in Tennessee right now, and she's being, surrounded by mudslides and bridges being taken out. So, she's obviously, you guys notice that her background's a little bit different. So she's boots on the ground right now. And then we're going to give you guys an update with Steward Healthcare. I'm going to talk about additional nationwide layoffs and the health of the consumer. And then Jack's going to end by talking about Super Micro. And other than that, just want to say definitely appreciate everyone being here. Sorry we didn't make it last week. One of the reasons why is this. I took Jack out shark fishing. So this was like to hang out with me. You see Jack, I told you guys he's a stud, absolute stud this man is. He's a volunteer firefighter. But that shark whooped him. He kept saying, Travis, reel it in for me. Reel it in. You sure you don't want to reel it in? I'm like, man, I've reeled in 1,000. Anyways, Jack, whenever you're ready, brother.
I don't know what I would have done without you, Travis, if I didn't have you there to hold me through that ordeal. Thank you so much.
Of course, man.
All right. Yeah, that was nice sandbagging there, brother. All right. If we could share my screen, please, because it's time for This Week in Doom. And guys, the news cycle, it was a little quiet this week, or at least the tone of the news cycle was quiet. But when I went back and decided to compile all of the biggest stories of this week in finance and geopolitics, this was a wild week. There was some huge, huge stories. And almost none of them are really getting the coverage they deserve. I don't know why. But let's start with this one. China's stimmy bazooka. China went full money printer this week, full Paul Krugman, full Keynesian economics. Everybody's been waiting for China to open the floodgates of stimulus. This week, it finally happened. Here's their Chinese president, Xi Jinping, being shown. So let's talk about some of the things that China did. They lowered the reserve requirement ratio, which basically is less money banks need to hold for emergencies. It frees up a lot of money to be lent. They're trying to stimulate lending into the economy. They also eased rules for down payments for the purchase of second homes. Now, that is a stunning departure from the rhetoric that Xi Jinping has been pumping for the last few years. He's had a very famous talking point that homes are for living in, not speculating on, trying to cool the rampant speculation and bubbly prices for housing in China. Well, now they're easing rules for second-time home buyers, second home buyers, not even second time, like multiple homeowners, trying to get more investment cash to flow into the Chinese housing market because it has fallen that hard. They also allocated 800 billion yuan of direct liquidity support for stocks. They're calling it the Market Stabilization Fund. Look, that's $113 billion that the Chinese government is going to just print and buy stocks with. So they're pumping money directly into their stock market. They lowered several key interest rates. The People's Bank of China will directly cover 100% of loans to local governments so that the local governments can buy unsold apartments and homes. That 100% loan coverage is up from the prior 60% number. So not only is the government going to print money and buy stocks, they're also going to print money and buy houses. Direct cash payments to the poor and the orphans. That's their talking point, not mine. And there is a slew of other measures like encouraging stock buybacks among Chinese listed companies. And, well, you think the Chinese stock market may have liked the easy money and the helicopters and the stimmies? Look at what the CSI 300 index did following the initial stimulus announcement over the next 4 days. China's key index, the CSI 300, rallied 15% in 4 days off of this news. Look, guys, we've seen this one. We know how this goes. When you print money, the first thing it does is it stimulates asset prices, as shown here on this chart. But coming soon is consumer inflation. When you try to monetize a debt problem, it works. That's what happens every single time. So the stimmies are flowing in China. Now, shifting gears to U.S. here and layoffs, something my buddy Travis is going to be talking about in great detail later on. We had a kind of scary talking point from Stellantis, the owner of Chrysler, the automaker, this week. Stellantis announced mass layoffs. Now, here's the actual wording of the release from Stellantis. They didn't give us any numbers, but they said the company will be implementing indefinite layoffs of represented employees across its footprint. So that indicates that these layoffs will be widespread, probably in the thousands, maybe the tens of thousands across their footprint. So this is going to be across every business division. They're specifically calling out represented employees here. So it's the UAW, the union workers who are going to be laid off. Now, Stellantis is already on the ropes with the union after last year they had a strike with the UAW, or a dispute with the UAW. Stellantis committed to big raises as well as investments in certain manufacturing facilities across the U.S. Well, now Stellantis is reneging on some of those promises and cutting employees at those facilities. So we could be looking at potentially another strike with the UAW involving Stellantis over these layoffs. And that's not the only labor dispute or big labor dispute that's going on. There's several of these happening in the economy right now. Let's not forget about Boeing. The strike at Boeing is now completed its second week. We'll be entering its third week here. Now, this week, Boeing took an enhanced proposal directly to the workers. They bypassed the union, and they proposed a 30% pay increase for represented employees. That's up from the initial offer of 25%, but that pay increase was summarily rejected. They won't even put it up for a vote there. So the union says no. They want a 40% wage increase. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, we've got 32,000 of them are on strike at Boeing. And now Boeing is losing an estimated $100 million every day that this strike goes on. And of course, this is on top of all of the safety issues and whistleblowers winding up dead, and the space capsule that was leaking, and all of the other problems that Boeing has. No shortage of problems for that company. And there is another big labor dispute pending in the United States. The U.S. Ports along the East Coast, the Gulf Coast, and Puerto Rico could all be on strike on Tuesday of this week coming up here. We've got 25,000 members of the International Longshoremen's Association representing every port along the East and Gulf Coast and Puerto Rico. They're threatening to go on strike if they don't reach a deal by the September 30th deadline, which means October 1st, or Tuesday coming up would be the beginning of the strike. Now, we're talking about 25,000 workers representing 43% of all imports to the United States travel through these ports. So this would be majorly disruptive, potentially even influencing things like the election if this really does become an issue and it lasts more than a few weeks. The U.S. Maritime Alliance is trying to get the Longshoremen's Union back to the table, but right now they're not even scheduled to resume talking. So it would take a breakthrough just to get them to start talking again, and then it would take another breakthrough to get them to reach an agreement prior to Tuesday. So it really looks like this is happening, guys. This is a big story that they'll be talking about later on next week. Also, we got big developments. This is, in my opinion, a huge story that went largely unnoticed in the market. Saudi Arabia and possibly another oil price war. We got this article in the Financial Times on Wednesday. Saudi Arabia is ready to abandon the $100 crude target to take back market share. Now, the last time Saudi Arabia did something like this was in 2014 when they flooded the market with crude oil that they were selling at a loss because they were trying to put U.S. shale oil producers out of business. The fracking boom in the United States flooded the market with cheap gas and cheap oil. The Saudis tried to put us out of business. It failed spectacularly, but not before they took the price of oil down to as low as $26 a barrel in 2016 at one point. Now, it didn't work. When the Saudis started cutting production, the U.S. producers just started ramping theirs right back up. But it looks like the Saudis are getting ready to throw in the towel on that $100 target, which means more oil will be hitting the market in the future. Oil prices were stubbornly low this week in the high 60s, despite all that news of stimmies from China and all the talk about a new Chinese industrial boom because of all the stimmy cash. Oil prices actually went down this week, arguably because of this story from Saudi Arabia. And we also got big news out of the Middle East. Just yesterday, Hezbollah's supreme commander Hassan Nasrallah was killed in an Israeli airstrike. Guys, this is basically the most wanted terrorist in all of Lebanon. He was killed yesterday in a rather spectacular airstrike that leveled several buildings in Beirut. And if you combine this airstrike with other airstrikes this week, along with the rather crazy exploding pager and exploding walkie-talkie attacks that happened last week, this just goes to show you virtually all of the highest and even mid-level commanders in Hezbollah have been killed in the last 2 weeks by some seriously surgical strikes by the Israelis. Of course, now we need to sit back and wonder, what is Iran going to do? What is Hezbollah going to do? And of course, the Houthis and Hamas and the whole other mess going on in the Middle East here. But this was very significant. Israel has really been flexing their intelligence and their covert and surgical strike capability to take out this many commanders in such a short time. And of course, last but not least, we had a particularly doomy story in the U.S. Hurricane Helene made landfall in Florida's Big Bend as a Category 4 storm, causing significant damage, not just along the coast, but much further inland, where it dumped huge amounts of rain, something that affected our very own Melody rather significantly. And she will be talking about that story momentarily. And thus concludes This Week in Doom. Back to you guys.
So, Jack, I had a quick question. Just Dario did a piece on that stimulus package from China, and he was kind of theorizing that in reality, the spin about the stimulus to buy stocks was a little off, that instead what China is doing is that they think that there is a big bank out there that's about to fail. And so shoring up the banks in preparation for that. And so I thought that was an interesting angle. Did you read that story as well?
I did. I saw Dario's story, and as always, Dario's write-ups are always excellent. He really is fantastic. That's just Dario on X or Twitter, by the way, guys. Maybe we could go in the show notes and put a link to his Twitter feed, because he's pretty good.
Very good.
I can't believe I missed this one in my list of China's stimmy measures. There was a big one that I missed that Dario was talking about. The 1 trillion yuan capital injection into China's banks. In particular, that's about $142 billion, which, that's almost the entire size of the bank term funding program that we rolled out to bail out the banks here in the States last spring. And that's money that the PBOC, they're just printing and giving to the banks. You don't do that during good times. So you're right. There could have been a big bank about to blow up. And the other thing is some of the restrictions on capital requirements, the reserve requirement ratio that China reduced. They only reduced it for their big banks. They didn't reduce it for their little banks. Now, that was an interesting twist also, because that means they want mergers. Because that means if a little bank can't reduce their capital requirements, but a big bank does, if the little banks get together to form, all of a sudden they can reduce their capital requirements. They can make more loans, increase their earnings, increase their shareholder equity. So China's really trying to facilitate fewer banks, more consolidation in the banks. That's something that's been happening here in the States. Now, why you would want to do that, the only thing I can come up with is that fewer banks are much easier to control. And if there's one thing China loves, it's centralized control. So yeah, this is what happened in China this week was really significant, Melody. And that was a very good point about what Dario wrote up about the banks there.
Yeah, I think we have, it's very interesting, and it is an abrupt change, which makes you feel like they are preparing for something. I think a lot of people like to say that, the Chinese play chess, they don't play checkers. It's hard to know if that's true, and we're just kind of projecting that on because we don't, there's a lack of verifiable information, but a lot of people do believe that the Chinese do try to play chess and prepare, whereas our leaders seem to just want to pretend these things aren't happening. But
yeah, I would add the Chinese play chess, but they also play chess while they have a gun pointed at the head of the person they're playing against. So it's they do think more long term, but they have the luxury of that because China doesn't have to answer to their people every 2 to 4 years in the form of an election. They rule with an iron fist.
Yeah, and wasn't one of their head economists just disappeared?
Yeah, he's got to be around here somewhere.
He's got to be somewhere. He was apparently, criticizing the policy, and now nobody can find them. So, yeah, that's what they do when there's dissent there.
All righty. Real quick, I just want to remind the viewers to comment below. And at the end of the segment, we'll throw that up. Also, shout out to Jeff. It's nice to see you, brother. I was just thinking about you today. I'm not trying to be biased, but man, I missed you. It's nice to see you. And also, I had just a quick question for you, Jack, on your segment. As far as the broken system that we live in, of the broken system we're living in, do you think that strikes now lead to layoffs?
Yes, indirectly. I'll say indirectly. The strikes aren't causing them, but we saw some big labor disputes last year. The UAW workers, the UPS workers, the airline pilots and airline workers, right? There were 3 really big ones last year. They all got big raises. Congratulations to them, 30, 40% raises. And then several months later, mass layoffs in every single industry. So, yeah, I mean, look, I don't blame these guys for wanting higher pay. Their cost of living has risen dramatically in the last couple of years, and they expect their wages to rise commensurate with that inflation. I don't blame them for that. But the fact is these companies have lost pricing power. So when they do increase their wages, they can't just raise their prices anymore because the average person can't afford it, which means they start cutting headcount. And we're seeing that all over the place, sadly.
Thank you, inflation. And then you guys, for Melody's segment, Melody is not at her normal location, so I'll be assisting Melody. Just Melody, whatever you need me to do.
Thank you so much, Travis. Yeah, so I'm kind of flying blind here today, guys. It has been a crazy 72 hours, really, as we started preparing for this storm quite a bit ago. So the first, I think, Travis, let's just play the clip of when Hurricane Helene made landfall in Perry, Florida.
I see I muted myself. That's why you guys were ignoring me. It wasn't just you guys being disrespectful, I see. All righty. So let me just mute us real quick, and we'll go ahead and play this.
Helene, now a tropical storm, made landfall in the Big Bend region of Florida's Gulf Coast as a Category 4 hurricane and is already linked to at least 3 deaths. The powerful storm dumped large amounts of water that flooded city streets and entered homes. Even before its arrival, the storm had caused power outages for over 1 million customers and severe flooding in several areas. Officials fear more fatalities would be discovered today as the storm gusted in with 225-kilometer-per-hour winds. Helene is tied as the 14th most powerful hurricane to hit anywhere in the United States since records have been kept, and is the 7th most powerful to slam into Florida.
We saw storm surges in many parts of the west coast of Florida that exceeded what we saw in Hurricane Idalia, which took a similar track. It was similar strength, maybe a little bit weaker, but you were seeing significantly more storm surge in places like Tampa Bay. We also saw major storm surge, of course, in the Big Bend region. There was a traffic fatality last night. We also this morning can report that there's been another fatality reported in Dixie County due to a tree falling on the home during the storm. Overnight, as soon as it was safe to do, and even in many cases probably wasn't perfectly safe to do, search and rescue operations were conducted to help people that were in distress and transport them to safety. And now it's still early. They're going to have those folks who were responding to those calls. They're going to be doing broader search and rescue in those areas that did get hit with significant storm surge and see if there's any other problems or if there's any folks that are still left behind. But as of now, we don't have reports of that. And so those missions were successful, and those missions saved a lot of lives.
Yeah, so I think, this in some ways, you heard him say that this wasn't as strong as Idalia, but, where I think we're going to see the greatest deaths and impacts are going to actually be in North Carolina and Tennessee. What we're seeing here was just absolutely unbelievable. Asheville so for everybody to understand what was happening here in Appalachia is you already had a system that was dumping rain here. And so we had rain for several days, saturating the ground. And so when that happens, especially up here in the mountains, You're going to get landslides. You're going to get trees falling on homes. So immediately following the storm, kind of when everything calmed down, I drove around just to see the general damage right where I was. And so I'm in Johnson City, Tennessee. For those of you, that's about an hour west of Asheville. And so, you've seen actually pictures of those highways, both Interstate 26, Interstate 40. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Places in that were closed, but I think the biggest damage, what you're seeing, are trees on homes, trees on automobiles everywhere. I don't have power or cell service at the farm right now. There's flooding, not in my immediate area, but unbelievably. And we're going to show this. I think, why don't we start with the hospital in Irwin or Unicoi County, Travis, and let's just show this. So essentially what happened is the Nokaluk, I can't even say the name of the river, the Nokaluchi River, I'm saying it wrong. Essentially, it just started flooding, and these people got trapped in the hospital. And so they went up to the roof to get rescued. Over 50 people. One of my followers, their granddaughter was a nurse there, and she got transported out. And so that's what you're seeing actually all over Asheville, up in Black Mountain. So much of that was just wiped out. And people can't communicate. There it is, Travis. Thank you. And so this is a picture of the hospital, what this looked like. And, this is just unbelievable, guys. And obviously, I think one of the things I'm seeing the most, and this from the stories I'm hearing from people here, is nobody was prepared. And this is why I have to say, as much as I complain about X Twitter, it is such a valuable resource in times like this, because you are getting news from individuals and camera crews can't make it back.
You know how it all ends up.
Sorry. That's Unicoi. Let's show next Asheville. This is a TikTok video where you see a whole home just coming, getting washed away. Yeah, so this is just one, there's all kinds of footage around Jonesboro, Tennessee, which is also very close to me, about probably 10 miles away downtown. They have homes just floating down the river. Just heard from a local friend, actually, that somebody that works for him was out going to help somebody. The last time they saw this family, they were in a mobile home floating down the river, 5 people in the family. Nobody has heard from them. So, and I want to read a tweet, or actually it's a message from a weather center in Asheville. And this is just really kind of disturbing, and forgive me for reading it out loud, but oh my goodness, what a devastating message from the Black Mountain Police Chief I just received. Y'all, it's bad in the mountains, and they need as much support as possible. I'm sorry to text so early. Our friend Steve, Black Mountain Police Chief, got home this morning to get some rest, and then he's headed back to Black Mountain. He's been up for 72 hours evacuating and rescuing. It's catastrophic in that area. Montreal and Swannanoa, our neighborhoods are gone. Neighborhoods are gone from flooding and mudslides. They're having to leave bodies behind. Houses are on fire. There's no communication, so people that need to be rescued can't call for help. So they have no idea where to look. The flood current is so strong, and they weren't able to save some people that were in their cars. No one even knows this is going on right now because of having no communication. We've been watching the news, and since we woke up this morning, and it hasn't even been mentioned. So many prayers are needed. So this is a developing situation. I don't think we're going to know. There are places in Banner Elk. So if you know this area, well, there's a ski resorts up near Banner Elk. It's just, it's a really cute area. I'm hearing that places up there were completely wiped away. Restaurants. I mean, there's just so much damage. And I don't think we're going to know what this death toll. And I mean, you could see one of the footage that we didn't bring up, I didn't send to you, Travis, was in Atlanta, where a local reporter basically had to go rescue somebody from their car. I don't know if you guys saw that. So this is just, so concerning. Atlanta, Charlotte, Knoxville. These aren't places where you have a ton of flood insurance, right? I mean, as you and I know, Travis, there's that national flood zone designation. Hardly anybody gets designated for flood insurance. And so what's going to happen, similar to Katrina, is they're not going to have the right coverage. If there's going to be fights between wind coverage, flood coverage. And so we are already seeing these massive increases to insurance. So, this is just going to be catastrophic for the insurance companies. And I'm hearing that the cat bonds have been very enjoyable, or not enjoyable is not the right word, attractive this year. People have been going into those catastrophic bonds. And so category 4 was completely wiped out. So the economic toll on people is going to be very significant. But right now, I think we're about to see some really concerning loss of life that nobody is expecting. And I think Florida likely might have done much better than, I'd say, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee. And yeah, there were several dams. So there were dams that failed in Tennessee. There's another dam that they thought was about to fail. And then, down in Charlotte, they were actually mitigating and bringing water down, flooding intentionally to manage that situation, to keep that dam from breaking. And so, I want to stop for just a second to say thank you to all the followers that send in this information. I mean, this is how we're learning about all of this, because again, it's not really on mainstream media around here. I had one follower who was camping down in Asheville and near a river. They got evacuated in the middle of the night. He drove down the mountain to somewhere he thought he was going to be safe. They came and evacuated him there. He almost didn't make it out. He was, very scared. They were in this camper. He said it was like being on a boat. And so this is, this is an area that was not expecting this. And I'm thankful, to people like Julius Miami, sending me different things that made me realize the seriousness of the matter. And I can tell that if you just read weather reports, guys, and the first, as this was happening, and even yesterday, it would say things like light rain. I don't if I was just looking at the weather reports, I would have had no idea the intensity of this storm and what to expect if it hadn't been for my followers in social media. So I just want to give a huge thank you. But this is going to be a developing story, and the damage and the destruction there's just not the right words to talk about it.
Melody, I have the power outage map too. I mean,
please bring that up quick. Yeah,
I didn't realize, but there's multiple states. I now know what I'm looking at here. Here it is for you.
Yeah. Right. So this, Julia sent me this. This is the power outage map. 3.7 million customers from Florida to Ohio without power, and I'm one of them. I just luckily got a shower at my sister's house today, which was very exciting. Because it's, no power, no cell service. So this is massive.
Melody, the story that you told me about the family getting swept away in a car, it amazes me to this day how many people still drive in the floods. We've all seen
they were in
the
a
videos.
Home. They were in a mobile home.
The mobile home, but you also mentioned a car had been swept away, right? A reporter had to pull
definitely,
people out of the car. I mean, I've done that with our fire department. I've had to stand in the bucket of a bulldozer that drove into the flood to fish out people who drove into the floods and got stuck. And then, the township bulldozer has to come rescue them. Because so many people do this, guys. It's amazing. Everybody's heard the statistics, but understand 6 inches of running water is enough to sweep a grown man off his feet and carry him away, and he'll never be seen again. 6 inches of water, all right? It doesn't look like that much water. 12 inches of water is enough to carry away the average car, right? Oh, it's only a foot deep. I'll just go through this little dip in the road. First of all, you can't even see if the road is even there anymore.
That's right.
Before you drive into it. But 1 foot of water, just 12 inches, can carry away your car. 2 feet of water, 24 inches, enough to carry away a full-size pickup truck or SUV. Do not drive into a flood, all right? Whatever cup of coffee you're going for, whatever you need to do, spend a few extra hours, just go around, guys. Don't drive into a flood. It's not worth your life.
Yeah, turn around, don't drown, as they say on the Weather Channel.
But people do. People still do it over and
know,
over again.
yeah.
You'd be amazed how many times this
Oh,
has
I
happened.
saw it. I mean, you just see it, and they always think that there's something important enough to do. And to be fair, there were many areas around Johnson City that were open. Like they opened one of the private schools, and so I think that sometimes that's also due to the fact that they're not getting the right information, and people aren't closing, and people are expected to work.
I had something real quick. When Jack says like drive into the flood, I can kind of give a testimony on that. Basically, it's a river, right? Like if there's a stream, like if it not like it's easy to know not to drive in when it's raining and pouring down and the car's being swept away. But what really he's saying, like a small stream could wreck you. I know that because I go shark fishing and I just wrecked my truck and the water was only like 2 feet deep and I thought it was like 2 inches deep. And so we had a little bit of complications. So, but I wanted to tell a couple good comments here, Julius, about preparation. There is another storm forming right now in the Gulf of Mexico. So preparation is key. As Florian is saying here, preparation is key. And I wanted to ask you, Melody, being that you're experiencing a storm, I've been through multiple hurricanes. I've seen the devastation of wind. We hit the walls the last hurricane, and the wind uproots trees, destroys roofs and things like that. But I've also been to Hurricane Harvey, and I've seen water. And so what would you consider overall more dangerous? This may sound like an easy answer for us that's been through this, but wind or water, what is more damaging?
Water. I mean, and it's just, and the damage it's not even just, okay, the water's flooding. It's the mold. It's everything that comes after. And, Travis, I think about those new build sites all the time, right? You've got open windows, you've got, and just how destructive this really is. And yeah, so water.
Toxic. Yeah. I mean, the water's toxic. There's fire ants here in Texas. So I remember when we were getting people out, a paramedic hit a ball of fire ants and the fire ants like exploded onto her body. It's pretty wicked. The water is so damaging. I mean, it's like super scary. So, Jack, I think, anything else you guys, any more questions for Melody, Jack? No, I think
Sorry, I was muted. I had to find the unmute button. No, Melody, thank you very much. And, I just want to say, I'm sorry, Melody. We had no idea how far inland the damage from this storm was going to reach. You hear a hurricane, you think, okay, a few miles of coastline are going to get leveled and, some flooding and some evacuations. You're not thinking widespread flooding and outages hundreds of miles inland like that. So we're glad you're okay. And give us a scare there, Mel. And we had no idea, totally oblivious to it yesterday.
Yeah. So. I was like, why is nobody checking on me? No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, where's Melody?
No, but honestly, guys, like they're comparing this to a flood in Asheville from 1916. These are like, once a century events and they change the landscape. I mean, there are several towns in North Carolina that are just gone and, and located and in Tennessee as well. And so, this is just, it's very, in these local communities, this is going to be so impactful. So, what I'm looking for is a way that I can obviously help, but I don't want to get in the way of rescue efforts right now until I can figure out a way. But thank you both, guys. It was kind of crazy, but thanks to my followers. And honestly, I just prepared and we were ready.
It's nice to see you. And you still did the live, Melody. You still did the live.
Yes.
She's dedicated to her craft, folks.
I'm sort of here. Yeah.
And whenever you're ready, Jack, I think
I'm ready, Trav. I just shared my screen. If you could bring that up, because folks, both myself and Melody here, we've been covering the collapse of Steward Healthcare over the last few months on this channel. And we're going to do a quick update on Steward because there was some rather shocking developments in this story. I covered it on my channel earlier this week. And I think this is so important. And to be honest with you, the way this overlaps with some of these geopolitical events really blew my mind this week. All right. So first of all, let's just talk about some real quick background. We mentioned this. This is reporting from the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. This is an independent journalism organization out of Europe. And we covered this a few weeks ago, how Steward Healthcare, even though they were bankrupt, even though they had been strip mining and looting hospitals via these sale leaseback agreements where they pay themselves millions of dollars in dividends while saddling the hospitals with tens of millions of dollars in rental payments every year, causing the slow decline of these hospitals, even patient deaths. Yet they had still spent $7 million to hire this British private intelligence firm called Audir International to spy on this man. This is Fraser Perring. Now, Fraser Perring is a short seller from a company called Viceroy Research, and they did a report. They're really the ones who exposed the fraud that was going on at Steward Healthcare and Medical Properties Trust. And Fraser Perring and Viceroy Research took out a short position on Medical Properties Trust and exposed this whole sale leaseback scam. And rather than not running a fraudulent healthcare company, Steward spent $7 million to hire this private intelligence firm to spy on Fraser Perring. And now we're learning even to conduct false flag attacks, trying to make him out to be a Russian spy or a Russian agent. I mean, really, this is like, it's the 2020s. So everyone I don't like is magically a Russian double agent, apparently, is like what passes for corporate America these days. But this actually made its way into the British Parliament, this story. And Travis, I sent you a video clip earlier. I want to, guys, check your audio levels. Sometimes the audio isn't quite right on these clips, but this is what was said about Fraser Perring in British Parliament. Go ahead, Travis.
Can we have a debate in government time on the activities of short-selling attack group Viceroy Research and its leader Fraser Perring? I'm told they're working hand in glove with Boatman Capital, which launched the short-selling attack on Babcock International while it was overhauling our nuclear submarines. Mr. Perring is not an infrequent visitor to Moscow and is now targeting Home REIT, which provides homelessness services, including services to homeless veterans. We must make sure that short-selling groups are not another weapon in Putin's arsenal. And so where there are links between short-selling attack groups and the Kremlin, we need to know.
Folks, that's basically the equivalent of pointing at your neighbor and shouting witch. All right. Oh, my God. I heard this guy went to Moscow. He makes frequent trips to Moscow. He's another weapon in Putin's arsenal. All right. This was read into the record in British Parliament. This was submitted as a written question in British Parliament. Fraser Perring's assets, his bank accounts were frozen because of this. He had to call up his banks and explain to them, no, I'm not a friend of Vladimir Putin's. No, I'm not a Russian agent. I'm just a guy who investigates fraudulent American healthcare companies. Please, can I have my own funds back now? But the interesting thing about that particular quote, we found out this week, again from the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, claims about short seller made in UK Parliament traced back to private intelligence firm hired by Steward Healthcare. This is Liam Byrne. This is the British MP that we were just listening to in that clip who read that quote. And it turns out those were not his words. Those words were spoon-fed to him by ex-spies who were being paid by Steward Healthcare to smear Fraser Perring. A private intelligence firm working for a disgraced U.S. healthcare operator fed what appears to be false information to a British politician, leading him to claim in Parliament that a well-known businessman was a Russian agent. Leaked communications show. But now those leaked communications obtained by OCCRP suggest that Byrne's comments were devised as part of a wider false flag campaign against Perring that the London-based private intelligence firm Audir International was engineering on Steward's behalf. OCCRP reported in July that Audir had been targeting Perring with surveillance and disinformation, following the businessman with private spies and posting crude content about him on Twitter. The communications show, and this is the crazy part, guys, ex-MI6 intelligence officer Christopher Steele, the author of the controversial Trump-Russia dossier, engaged in discussions with Audir on March 2nd, 2023, about a written question Byrne should ask in Parliament about Viceroy. Audir provided the text of a proposed question to Viceroy to Steele, who later confirmed he had sent the question to Byrne with minor changes. There's Christopher Steele. There's the guy. Remember the Trump-Russia collusion hoax? Remember the dossier that they used to get a warrant to spy on Trump's campaign in 2016? Remember all these guys who were prosecuted and investigated as a result of that fake story? The same guy that Hillary Clinton's people hired to dig up, to create fake information about Donald Trump being a Russian agent. He did the same exact thing to Fraser Perring. Again, everybody I don't like is just a Russian agent. Apparently, that's what passes for work these days. Bank transaction records show that Steele received 29,000 British pounds from Audir in 2023. There is no indication Steele violated any laws. That's unbelievable that they're claiming he didn't violate any laws. Being bribed to submit fake information to politicians, I'm pretty sure that's a violation of at the very least, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act here in the United States. So they paid this former spy, the same guy who created the whole Trump-Russia fake story, to create a fake Russia story about Fraser Perring, all paid for by Steward Healthcare, who was bankrupting their hospitals. And then we got another development this week. U.S. Senate votes to hold Steward Healthcare CEO Ralph De La Torre in contempt. Senators unanimously passed a resolution to hold Ralph De La Torre, the CEO of troubled hospital operator Steward Healthcare, in criminal contempt of Congress on Wednesday. De La Torre failed to appear at a hearing where he was subpoenaed to testify in Capitol Hill earlier this month, and the Senate resolution refers the matter to the Department of Justice for prosecution. It marks the first time since 1971 that the Senate has held someone in criminal contempt. So, Travis, that story broke just a few hours after you and I got together on your channel to talk about Steward Healthcare. And I remember I was saying, God willing, we're going to see Ralph De La Torre in handcuffs someday soon. A few hours later, the Senate holds him in criminal contempt. So, this story, it's ongoing, it's developing, but just unbelievable dirtbaggery that they hired Christopher Steele to smear Fraser Perring, and now Ralph De La Torre is in criminal contempt. And this story is still not over, guys. We're still learning more and more about this company every week.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful to you, Jack, on your coverage of this story. And I think, I honestly believe that's why it's getting so much exposure. I mean, because you've really done some amazing reporting here. And I just wanted to say that. And we saw it in the comments as well, but it's just been incredible coverage. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. And once again, the original work here, I got to give credit to Fraser Perring over at Viceroy Research. I mean, this was his original work, and they're going after him personally for it. They've targeted his house. They're following him around. They're taking pictures of him and his wife in their living room. And now they're having, can you imagine a congressman standing up and saying Melody Wright is a Russian agent?
Yeah,
like reading that into the record. Like, can you imagine like what that might feel like? And then to find out they're taking pictures of you in your home. I mean, these people, these are nuts. These people are nuts, and they're dangerous, and they are hurting people. The patients are dying. They're destroying people's lives to keep their own crimes covered up. So shout out to Fraser Perring at Viceroy Research, who started this work. And, short sellers get a bad rap sometimes because they profit from what they do. But short sellers play a vital role in a healthy functioning market because there is a financial incentive for them to detect and report on fraud that creates a healthier market when that fraud is exposed, because these companies are taken out before they can do more damage. And in this case, I think Fraser Perring has done an immense public service to the whole world, because Steward isn't just hurting people in the States. They're also doing this over in Malta and other countries as well. So hats off to Fraser Perring for this one.
Yeah, I think it's very, very funny. Eurodollar University is the first place I heard this, but often in these times of the economic inflection point, when, we're in these periods of mania, but then we know what's coming next, that you have this period where they always blame the short sellers. And you can go back to the Great Depression and find it there as well. And so, I think South Korea were the first ones to really go out there blaming the short sellers. But I think that they, like, when we get into these cycles and we're ending nearing the end of the cycle, that you get a lot of finger pointing that isn't warranted.
And guys, I would just add, by the way, Fraser Perring of Viceroy Research, he was also one of the earliest guys to report on the fraud at Wirecard. the biggest fraud in the history of Europe. That was Fraser Paring, who was one of the key players in taking down that company years before the actual story broke that they actually were doing fraud. Fraser Paring and his guys were reporting on what they were doing and how this was going on. So, you know, in my opinion, Fraser Paring, like, he's this guy who goes into a phone booth and changes and, you know, leaps over small buildings in a single bound. At least financially, he is a freaking superhero, in my opinion. And, you know, the Wirecard people, they went after him personally too. I think these guys, these are the unsung heroes of finance. They're out there. They're putting their personal butts on the line to report on this stuff, often at great expense to themselves. Yes, they have a financial incentive to do it, but where's it's written that you can't make a profit reporting on fraud? So, yeah, more to come on this story. And,
I have a question for you both, actually. What are your thoughts on the malicious prosecution and the lack of countersuing these agencies for, again, malicious prosecution? I mean, it blows my mind because now the Russian thing seems like a trend. So where's the prosecution against the prosecutors?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because Liam Burns' comments in Parliament are protected by parliamentary privilege. A British politician can get up and say anything he wants about anybody, true or not, and it's protected. He cannot be prosecuted for that. Now, Christopher Steele and Steward Healthcare, they can be prosecuted here in America. We have laws that protect against bribing politicians for personal benefit or company benefit in other countries. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act was created for this very thing. But, you know, it's funny because in England right now, you can be arrested for insensitive tweets, right? For tweets that offend people about gender or about immigration. People are going to jail over that. But a politician can do the bidding of a corrupt organization that's killing people by lying about somebody being a fake Russian agent, and he's protected. The laws are supposed to protect the people from the crooks, not to protect the crooks from the people. So, and by the way, we got to say, John Murphy, wow, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and I pulled up Psalms 23. I'll just read the first 4 passages real quick, not to spread any religion, but just because this is an interesting passage. And this is how this goes, starting at 1. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. Mindset's key, guys. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right path for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil. You are with me, your rod, your staff, they comfort me. John, thank you for the support. That's a great verse. Great verse. Any of you guys want to comment on that?
I just want to say thank you so much, John. I really appreciate the support and the message there. Much obliged, sir. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And appreciate the message very much.
He's got a good point. I mean, you know, leaning on, I mean, hey, you don't have to say you don't lean on God, lean on serving other people. All right, I'm going to get started on the next segment now, guys. Let me put this up on the screen, make sure this is up here. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to go over a few things with y'all, and we're going to talk about the mass layoffs that are happening around the nation. And right now, Tim, I see you. Thank you as well for your support. All right. So what you guys are looking at right here is a chart of this year's mass layoff notification. So all you're looking at is the mass layoffs. This is not mom and pop. These are only big employers laying off a whole bunch of people. And this is for this year only. So this is only for 2024. This is the entire list right here. Okay. All of the mass layoffs. So I wanted to start by telling you guys and talk, you know, I've done a lot of videos recently about the layoffs, but it's been mostly household names. So I wanted to start by showing you guys the most recent round of layoffs that are coming. First one's Blue Raven right here. And what's interesting about Blue Raven is look at the notice date is November 10th. So I don't even know. That's what I'm wondering here. I don't even think that the employees at Blue Raven know they're about to get laid off. And that's
Travis,
700.
Sorry, could you zoom in a little bit, bud? We can't see the text on the screen. Is it possible to blow that up a little bit? Control scroll.
Well, for you, Jack, anything is possible, brother.
There we go. And now we're cooking with gas. Beautiful.
Cooking with gas, buddy.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
I'm blind. You know.
That's okay. So here's the most recent announcement of a mass layoff is actually Blue Raven. I'm not 100% sure what they do, but I thought it was interesting that the last 3 announcements for mass layoffs were all in Utah. The last 2 were actually in Salt Lake City. And these are actually pretty decent sized mass layoffs. Obviously, these layoffs impact the localized markets. But look at this. The next one's Purple Innovation. And look at the warn notice. That's crazy. This 22nd of next month. I don't even know if these people know they're about to be laid off. And then StubHub as well in Salt Lake City. You see that? So they are spreading. And look at the notice. See that? October 1st. I don't think this 1,500 people that are about to get laid off know. Because I don't think they're required to, because again, look at the notice date. That's crazy. That's crazy stuff. Anyways, so I wanted to show you guys that. As far as the recent ones. Now, as far as just the month of September, I'm going to show you guys. Okay, so here's the notice date. All right, so the total amount of companies right now, this is just September, following mass layoff notices. All right, I'm still scrolling down to September. You guys may see some of these names, you may recognize some of these names, but there's 144. And again, you guys, these are only mass layoffs. These are not small mom and pop layoffs. These are big companies doing layoffs. And again, look at some of these companies. You guys should notice that. So another thing that I want to show you guys now is, let's look again. This is just for this year. Let's look at the top mass layoffs. All right. So let's look at the biggest mass layoffs. And it's very interesting because, does anyone know? Look at Jack. Look familiar? Interesting, huh? You were just telling me, Jack was just saying how this Sabine Pass saved the oil industry. Look at the #1 leading layoffs.
I don't know about
Same
save
company.
the industry. I mean, it's not oil. That's natural gas. But that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's the construction firm that's building Sabine Pass. I wonder. I haven't read anything about the expansion plans at Sabine Pass going away, but I wonder if that's what that's telling us, because they're supposed to be building more trains there.
4,000, Jack.
Wow.
And you know, it's interesting. That's in Houston, but it's not saying Houston. The film was, oh, Sabine Pass. Oh, who cares about that? It's right down the street. It's literally right next to Houston. So you have Sabine. That's huge. Look at this. This Ratter Labs, 3,600 people. Oh my God. Look at a casino shut down in Vegas, 3,300. You have Tesla in Austin, Melody in just Austin, 2,700 people. You have the National Aerospace. Look at General Motors. I covered this. This was one of the most recent mass layoffs right here. Look at this. Is September 19th. So I wanted to give you guys, an idea of, 1,695 people, because people maybe that's only a little bit. It's only a little bit, but these are just pockets. We're just showing you localized. So when you look here and you look at the General Motors plant that's shutting down, you start to realize how massive these layoffs really are. This is the plant. This is the GM Fairfax plant right here. All right. And what I want to show you guys is these closures. This is a massive facility, impacts all of the community. So these shops down here, these eateries may have been leaning on these people to go eat lunch there or whatever. And you see the residential neighborhoods right here. Okay. And up here as well. You see all these residential neighborhoods all right here. So this is going to have a profound impact. And let me zoom in again, so you guys see how big this is. Huge facility. Look at the parking lot. Massive facility. All these people, not all, but like 90% of these people just lost their job. So where they get, think about the impact. Let me scroll down here. I'm going to just show you guys how big this facility is. This is huge. Now they say they're going to hire them back potentially at the end of 2025. I think they're going to go to automation. I don't know, but they're going to do an EV. But look at the parking lot, guys. Look at that. Just again, this isn't even the #1 layoffs. This is just one. This is not #1. So, in other words, guys, the impact is huge. But let me go back here. And I'm going to show you guys now this. Okay. Now, here's how if you guys really want to know and you want to see the impacts of how layoffs spread, all you got to do now is you categorize by city. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys right now. So General Motors, huge company, laid off 1,700 people, right? This is in Kansas City. Okay. So now let me recategorize this Z to A, and let's scroll down to Kansas City. And I'm going to show you guys that as a direct impact of that facility closing, other companies have now announced layoffs as well. Geez, I'm sorry, guys.
That's my fault. I made you zoom in, and so it takes longer to scroll.
It's okay. Look at
blame
right
myself.
here. It's all right. Look at right here. Okay. Well, look at all these Kansas City layoffs. Now I've went down this list, and not all of these are a result of General Motors, but most of them are, like the ones that are recent, like all of these right here. That's General Motors. That's the result of General Motors right here. And let's see here. That's about it. So that's a way to figure it out. And if you really want to dig in, you go to the news stations and you look up, you look up all these companies, OP Mobility, Penske. Obviously, Penske's huge, and you'll see that they're noting we're laying off people because of General Motors. So my point again is in saying all of this, it spreads. That's why everyone is talking about layoffs. That's why the Federal Reserve has told us, by the way, the Federal Reserve is a bunch of liars, and I hate talking about them, but they've told us we're going to focus on the labor market, not inflation, because again, this stuff spreads and it is extremely difficult to stop. But it's not just these layoffs that's happening. And again, this is spreading. You guys can go to this list. You guys can categorize this, do whatever you want. But look at the state of the consumer. Now, this is very interesting, because we got a couple things going on here when we look at the personal savings rate. Okay, the first thing is the savings rate comparably has been in the gutter. All right, you see the last recession, you kind of see before lockdowns, we're at 5, in the upper 5s and 6s. Right now it's updated to 4.8. But we have two problems here. The first problem is, again, the savings rate is going down. The second problem is they constantly manipulate data. They are constantly manipulating data, and anyone that has been following consumer health and whether or not people are really broken, are we going to head into recession, knows that a few days ago, look at this, was updated September 27th. They changed all of this just like they changed the median sales price for new homes. If you guys were watching new homes median sales price, you guys know they changed the pricing buckets and made it appear like there was no price decline. They did something similar with the personal savings rate. It is now showing no savings decline. So when this first updated, I was like, wow, it jumped up to 4.8. It was just under 3. It was just under 3. So I was like, wow, something happened. Like, what happened? We went from 3 to 4.8. And then when I went back here, I noticed that the savings rate went down. And then I was like, oh my God, did they really just revise all this data again? They just revised all the data again. So now there's like this massive jump upward, like we're in a recession, but we're not really in a recession. But when I'm looking at this, guys, we can't trust anything. We can't trust anything. We may be in deep recession, but we will never know it, because whoever is in charge of this data literally keeps making adjustments to push a narrative. It seems like it's the same narrative every single time. And I'm not trying to get, tinfoil hat, but the narrative is the same every time. It's something is stronger than what it actually is. Either the economy is strong, labor market strong, housing market strong, whatever. If it was so strong, why are you manipulating the data? If it's so strong, why are you changing the data? And it's really messed up, Melody. And I understand, like, a lot of the people's perspective, bullish professionals in the industry, like, if they're using this data to give insights, like, I get it, but like, if to any of those bulls, what are your thoughts on them manipulating the data? I mean, how do you justify that? How do you justify? They manipulated that, Jack, Melody. Look at that. It's 4.8. It was just 3. They manipulated another set of data. Anyways, moving on. Delinquency rate. Delinquency rate for credit cards sitting at 3.25%. Okay, yeah, historically, maybe not that low if you want to talk historically, but it is actually super high over the last 10 years. So over the last 10 years, we're like at 2.5-ish. We're at 3.25 right now. That brings us back to about right here, guys. Q4 of 2011. But I want to make a point that's really important until they manipulate this data. So the last time that we had this level of delinquencies for consumer credit card debt was 2011. But there's a huge but there. Notice the trajectory of that trend in 2011. The trajectory of the trend in 2011 is a downward trajectory, telling us that consumers were getting healthier. Right now, we have an upward trajectory demonstrating to us that the consumers are not getting healthier, that we are getting hurt, and we are losing our ability to thrive, to live, to pay our bills. Again, upward trajectory. The last time that we had an upward trajectory like that, what happened, guys? We went into recession. The great.
And we didn't have buy now, pay later back then either. And I think that's something people are missing. I just got a notice from Chase that said, on your debit card purchases, you can do split it into installments. Debit card purchases, not even credit. I mean, that is insanity, guys. Like, they are trying to get every dollar they can before this thing goes, belly up. So,
and they are legit. they're literally getting as much money as possible. Okay, so I mean, to your point, delinquency is going up. Okay, probably because that income ain't doing nothing. So here's real median household
Travis,
income.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry
go
to
ahead.
interrupt you
You want me to
again.
go back?
Could you go back to that
I
prior
gotcha.
graph?
Yep. Here it is.
This is an important detail. You're talking about the highest since 2011, right?
Mhm.
That is the delinquency rate. Okay, the percentage of all consumer credit
Right.
debt that is now delinquent. Could you share my screen for a quick second here?
The amount.
The amount, consumer credit. This is consumer credit going back to 2011. The amount of consumer credit is almost double what it was in 2011. So yeah, the rate might be the same, but the amount of debt that is delinquent is doubled over that same time period. And that is a huge detail that the people who pound on, oh, the delinquency rates are so low, they're ignoring the scale of the problem, the size of it. So that's a very important distinction there.
Yeah. And similarly, like the FHA, the fact that it's near the same delinquency rate, but it's double the amount of people,
Right.
and people are ignoring that. Yep.
People are really good at ignoring things,
They
but
really
we're not
are.
really. I'm not good at ignoring my income going down. But here's real median income adjusted for inflation. Here's what I'm saying, you guys. Here's what we're all saying. Actually, the three of us is they can't. I don't believe that these prices are sustainable because of the lack of us thriving, the lack of consumers growing. And what I mean is making more money, because instead of us making more money, our money is being taxed. I'll get to that in a minute. But look at the real median income. We're still, okay, so it finally went up. So thank God in 3 years, it finally went up. But I just wanted to let you guys know it's still not even at 2019 levels. Okay, so real median household income is still not at 2019 levels. But remember, you guys, what happened after 2019? Literally everything got more expensive. We had a price bubble. So I want you guys to look at this chart, understand that as prices were exploding for everything, we were making less money. And that's why I'm saying it's not sustainable. And again, what I'm saying is not sustainable specifically is home prices. All right. So as we were making less money, home prices shot up like crazy because one reason, there's a couple reasons, but a primary reason was the interest rates got so low, not only because the federal funds, right, because the purchasing of mortgage-backed securities. It was more the mortgage-backed securities or quantitative easing. But look at this bubble. I mean, this is a massive bubble. So prices are exploding and CPI is exploding again as income's not even at 2019 levels. I'm not trying to pick on anyone. This is my point. I've been trying to make for I don't know how long. And you see that as well in the PE ratio. The PE ratio, and we just look at income and price growth, it's 7.18. Now, there's a lot of different matrices to look at with PE ratio. This is just one I'm using. This is the highest it's ever been, by the way. So we have the highest PE ratio than we've ever had in our history when it comes to houses, as far as I know. And this goes back to 1940s. So it goes back to 1940s. But look at what happened during the GFC. Okay, we had a reset. Now, some, including me, would argue that we should have continued that reset. But right here where my arrow's at, you guys see this? This is very interesting because right here where my arrow is at, when it starts going up, this is when something called Operation Twist started happening. So in 2012, and you can blame the Federal Reserve and Wall Street and the bankers for this, Operation Twist, they did another round of QE. They did another round of asset purchasing, mortgage-backed securities. This is the point where you guys are looking here that I believe Wall Street dug in. This is the avenue and conduit that was created for Wall Street to screw up our housing market right here, where this arrow's at. Okay, that's what I believe. Anyways, moving right along. Now, here's why we can't make more money. This is why we can't make more money, ladies and gentlemen, because they're spending our money. Actually, they've already spent my money like back in, I don't know what, 1990, Jack, maybe. So they already spent my money back like 1990. I'm paying for, I don't even know, but my children are going to be paying for my debt. Look at the parabolic nature of this debt. This is just government debt. We're sitting at about 35 trillion with a T. And it's getting worse, guys, unfortunately. And seriously, look at this. Breathe that in for a minute there. They're reckless. And then no one's telling them no. Who's telling the government not to spend money? Who's coming up with the underwriting formula to say, hey, you can do this and it's not going to break the system? Here's the guidelines. You can't have this, if you have this much debt, you're going to hurt people. Where are the guidelines? As a consumer, I have an underwriting guidelines. If I want to buy a house, there are underwriting guidelines that tell me I have to do these things in order to qualify. Why doesn't the government have guidelines? Why do the school districts just get to issue debt and bonds? Why isn't anyone telling them no? And why isn't there any safeguards in place that are being adhered to stop them? And my case in point is here, and I'll be done. The deficit spending. This means this is the money that is spent so far this year that they don't have, which is 1.9 trillion. And I just want to show this real quick. You guys have seen me, but now I can show you guys this. Okay. I couldn't show you this before. We're over 2023 now. Okay. Look at the trajectory of deficit spending. And they're telling us we're not in a recession. They're telling us we have a strong economy. Strong economies don't have deficit like this. I know that for sure. You guys look at the trajectory of deficit spending. So when 2024 comes out, again, it's going to be higher than this bar, which was 2023, which all of them are higher than the great financial crisis, which means, again, the reckless spending is preventing a lot of us from thriving. So if it's me, I'm tightening up. I just want to end there, Melody. I'm tightening up. I'm living like I'm broke. I'm trying to save my money. I'm saving my electricity. I looked at my medical insurance. I've canceled my subscriptions. This live is being ran on solar. I love my solar. So, it's tough times. And, I don't want to scare people. I don't want to be like, fear mongering. But all I'm saying is it's like the reason why so many people get hurt. It's not because it's the apathy. It doesn't take a lot to hedge yourself. That's the point I'm trying to make. And part of hedging yourself is understanding what's going on. These layoffs are going to spread. The amount of deficit spending is insane. The inflation is hurting us bad. The inflation is keeping the prices propped up, and that inflation is being piled on our households in America. It's really quite disgusting. That's all I got for you guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's, positivity, brimming with positivity. That's okay. We have to give the facts. But does anybody know, and I'm asking this completely off the cuff, what the FEMA budget is? Because, I would imagine what just happened is going to blow that right out of the water.
And the insurance.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And so citizens, down in Florida, they have the state back insurance. There's some that think that Florida kind of got off a little bit easier. I think it's probably too soon to tell, but, DC has been very concerned about that government backed insurance down there in Florida. And so it's going to be very interesting to see what those initial estimates are. I think when they first started talking about Ian, they said 17 billion, and it ended up being closer to 40 billion, I think, when all was said and done. So I'm going to be looking to see what these initial estimates are. But for the catastrophic, devastation we're seeing here, the price of that is going to be very huge. We didn't mention it, Travis, but there's a big section of I-40. I meant to mention it, that got taken out on the eastbound side. And I-40 is one of the biggest transports for goods east to west. Any day of the week, you just see massive amounts of truckers there. So, that's going to have a big impact as well.
I just wanted to say this real quick. And Jack, I know you're chomping at the bit there, but here's the thing, guys. So a lot of people are like, oh, if we don't have property tax, where's the money going to come from? How about the money comes from the No More Fraud? How about we start there? How about we see, and this is why I say that when you look at the TARP funds, okay, when you look at the TARP funds from the Great Financial Crisis, billions of dollars was taken from CEOs for their bonuses. So before it's, we can't talk about property tax. What do we do? We got to freaking smoke these people out, man. There's people along the line, along the change, and I think it starts with the state comptroller. That's got to be where it's at, because they're the auditors. And because a child knows what's going on with the debt, the child knows that this is not sustainable. And so if an auditor signs off on a budget and a child knows that they shouldn't sign off, then the corruption is in the auditor, state comptroller. I forgot what the question was. I'm so sorry, Jack.
Well, Melody, you asked about FEMA's budget. I looked that up real quick. FEMA's 2023 fiscal year budget was $29.5 billion. That's their operating budget. I suspect with disaster relief, you're probably going to have some kind of a bill works its way through Congress for disaster relief. That's where you got to watch out, though, because I can tell you I lived through Hurricane Sandy in the Northeast. And of course, the government real quick, rubber stamp $1 trillion spending package or however many billions. And the fraud was just ready to gobble that money up. And they're still prosecuting all the Sandy frauds from all people who embezzled and stole that relief money. It's going to take them decades to clear that out. So I don't think the FEMA operating budget is really what they're going to draw from for this storm. They'll probably pass some kind of a relief package, but I hope they take their time because the grifters are chomping at the bit. Now, Travis, what you brought up, some interesting things in your layoff coverage there. I noticed the GM layoffs and all of the ancillary, good job catching that, like the logistics companies and the tooling companies that were also laying people off. In This Week in Doom, I talked about the mass layoffs at Stellantis. This week we had CarMax reported earnings, and they took big loan loss provisions for credit losses, people not paying their auto loans. Ally Financial stock took a big dive 2 weeks ago when they let leak at a Barclays conference that they were seeing big rises in delinquencies in the auto space. So layoffs in automotive, labor disputes in automotives, people not paying their car loans. I wondered, how long until we start talking about cash for clunkers 2.0? I think it's coming. The auto industry is flashing all kinds of warning signs right now, including in that report that you just did. So good catch, brother.
Yeah. And
well, appreciate it.
It's interesting too, because I've heard other people talking about, the amount of of cars that were completely ruined in this, right? I mean, it's just going to be, to me, I haven't been able to kind of think through all of the impacts. A lot of people are thinking this would be inflationary for used cars, but I think these people are going to, I don't know that that's true. And so that's something, again, this is early innings, right, of what the aftermath and the economic sticker price is going to be. And, this could be really change a lot of the trajectory of, I think, what people are thinking for the next several months, including in construction, right, Travis? Because, I mean, we've just seen construction employment kind of start to turn over, but this could change things.
A lot of it is, a lot of what's going on is like the prices being propped up and things kind of continuing, other than the fraud, corruption, and greed, is our house prices sustaining. There's so many like bonds or whatever. There's so many things that are hedged and collateralized from our houses. When the housing market goes, a lot of assets and collateral and things like that goes with it. But what's interesting is, again, because of lack of inventory in some markets, you see that the job market plays a big role, especially the job market. So the job market and the housing market and the economy, it all is intertwined. It's a very, I just want to get a house I can afford. You know what I mean? That I love. I didn't show you guys. I did a live earlier this morning, but the market that I've been watching, I have more inventory than I have had in like 4 years. I have price declines. I have builders offering 0% interest rates, but that's my market, right? So it's important to understand your market and to go into the hood. But I just wanted to say real quick to Tim for the support. Thank you, brother. Wish you had a message there. Thank you for that $50 support, man. Hope you're doing well. Happy Saturday. And thank you for joining us. This stuff is a little bit boring. So we definitely appreciate you. And don't forget, you guys, every time we talk, we have links and we have ways for you guys to empower yourself. Empower yourself. Do something about it. It's really easy. We're just really kind of telling you not to spend your money. No fear of missing out. The fear of missing out. What does that mean to you, Jack? What does the fear of missing out mean to you?
Fear of missing out means, I better hurry up and overpay for a bloated asset before the price goes up even higher. And typically that marks the top when people start doing that. So no FOMO.
Anything you want to say to Tim, Melody? Nothing? Okay.
Jack. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate the support of the channel. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I said thank you in the chat, but thank you, Tim.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. Whenever you're ready, Jack.
I am. Could we share my screen again, brother? Because we're going to do another quick update on a story that we've been covering here at DNN because somebody has to. And that update was super micro. We got more developments this week. You guys may recall a few weeks ago, we did a live stream where we went in depth on the super micro story, on the research that was done by Hindenburg Research, released a short report on super microcomputer. That short report from Hindenburg Research was excellent. It was largely based on a whistleblower lawsuit that has been going on in California. Also by some fantastic research by a guy named the Orcafin on Substack, who exposed some shady relationships between Supermicro and some companies that are owned by the CEO's brothers. And also Hindenburg threw in some of their own research about violations of export controls and sanctions having to do with Russia. Well, we got an update on Supermicro this week, and the stock took a dive on this update. Wall Street Journal ran this article on September 26th. That was Thursday of this week. Justice Department probes server maker Supermicro Computer. Former employee accused AI server maker of accounting violations. So this isn't just a short seller report. This isn't just accountants digging into the books. Now we've got a criminal investigation going on by the Justice Department. Supermicro Computer, the server maker that saw its business take off with the artificial intelligence boom, is being probed by the Justice Department following a critical report by an activist short-selling firm, according to people familiar with the matter. The probe is at an early stage, the people said. A prosecutor at the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Francisco has recently contacted people potentially holding relevant information. The prosecutor asked for information that appeared to be connected to a former employee who accused the company of accounting violations. That former employee filed a whistleblower lawsuit in April against Supermicro and its chief executive officer. So they're talking about a former employee. The guy's name is Tim Luong, Luong. I apologize, Tim, if I'm butchering your name, though. And Tim's whistleblower lawsuit claims that shortly after Supermicro Computer was delisted by the NASDAQ and investigated by the SEC back in 2018 and 2020, they were basically caught doing accounting fraud. They were kicked out of the NASDAQ. The SEC investigated them. They paid the SEC millions of dollars in fines for their accounting fraud, and they fired a bunch of people. And then this whistleblower lawsuit claims that as soon as the SEC left the building, the ink wasn't even dry on the SEC settlement for their prior accounting fraud. Supermicro started hiring all of the people they fired back, and they started doing the exact same thing. And of course, when this whistleblower raised concerns about what was going on, they put him on unpaid leave and fired him instead of changing their tactics, changing their investigations. And of course, that's just rehiring the people who committed the previous fraud. Then the Orcafin's fantastic research unveiled these companies called Ablecom and CompuWare, which are basically, they're listed as suppliers. They're supposed to be independent companies, but Ablecom and CompuWare are both owned and controlled by brothers of Charles Lang, the CEO of Supermicro. And these companies operate out of the same freaking buildings in Taiwan. So what these Ablecom and CompuWare companies do is basically Supermicro buys the parts, sells them to Ablecom and CompuWare. They assemble the parts into the servers, and then they sell them back to Supermicro. And that enables Supermicro, through either overcharging or undercharging or messing with the billing schedules with these companies that are basically controlled by the same people, it enables them to either artificially inflate their earnings numbers by minimizing the cost of goods sold, or they could use overcharging to just loot this company and rob their shareholders. Either way, Supermicro Computer is not disclosing the incestuous relationship between the CEO and his brothers and the boards of directors controlling all these companies. And this is a company with a documented history of fraud. They've done it before and they got away with it. Why wouldn't they do it again? And so they're now under probe by the Department of Justice. That's a huge development. And I would also add, within the last week, we got this one. Supermicro announced receipt of a non-compliance letter from the NASDAQ. Again, recall shortly after that short seller report was issued by Hindenburg Research, a day later, Supermicro said, we're not going to be able to file our 10K on time, which is basically, without confirming, basically confirms everything. They're telling us our auditors wouldn't sign off on our books after the short seller report. Well, Supermicro received a non-compliance letter from the NASDAQ due to a delay in filing their annual Form 10K for the period ending June 30th. The 10K was due on August 29th, and the company filed the Form 12B25 on August 30th, basically saying we're not going to file on time. The notification states that SMCI is not in compliance with NASDAQ listing rule 5250C1, which requires timely filing of reports with the SEC. The notice does not immediately affect the listing or trading of SMCI's common stock on the NASDAQ Global Select. SMCI has 60 days from the date of the notice to either file their 10K or submit a compliance plan to the NASDAQ. If a plan is submitted and accepted, SMCI could be granted up to 180 days from the 10K's due date to regain compliance, or if the plan is not accepted, SMCI can appeal that decision. So basically, the NASDAQ has put Supermicrocomputer on notice. You're not in compliance. You better get in compliance, or we're going to delist you again like we did in 2020. Supermicro has 180 days. So this isn't going to happen right away. This company's not going to get booted tomorrow. This is a slow-moving thing. There's all kinds of grace periods and notices and filing plans and rejections and appeal processes. This could take a year, maybe even 2 years to clean up. But this company is corrupt as all get out. And I just want to point out what their stock has done. This is going back to about November of last year. Supermicro stock went as high as $1,200 in March. It's now trading at $419. This was the big sell-off in August on that Hindenburg research report. And here is the sell-off this week on reports of that DOJ investigation. And yet somehow some idiot dip buyer came in on Friday and decided to buy up these shares because the stock rallied 4% on Friday after falling 13% on Thursday. Somebody out there is still saying, well, they're doing fraud. They did fraud in the past. They're under investigation by the Department of Justice. Sure, I'll buy this stock because, like Ron Burgundy reading the question marks on the teleprompter, the people bidding up this market will literally buy anything you put in front of them, no questions asked, including fraudulent companies doing fraud. Stock was up 4% on Friday. So that is the update on Supermicro, guys. We will stay on top of this story as it develops.
Yeah, I just want to add, you just don't not file your 10Q or K. Like that's just not something that you do, and without knowing that you are in some serious trouble. So you don't even usually postpone it a couple of days because that is typically an indication something's going on. But I think what really upset me about this story last week, Jack, is looking at Nvidia. It went up as well, and I'm just like, it's as if and it is, I know it is, but it still kind of bothers me. The market is completely oblivious and they do not care that this is all hopium and total BS. So it's just so frustrating to watch in many ways.
Melody, I can tell you some of the people don't know. The big guys in this market are smart enough to know what's going on. They all know what's going on. Supermicro is NVIDIA's third largest customers. All right. So if their third largest customer is committing widespread fraud, and by the way, NVIDIA also has a history of accounting fraud going back to the dot-com bubble. All right. Everybody, all the big guys in Wall Street, they know what is going on here. But number go up, and so they don't care. That's the thing. They don't care as long as the stock is going up. So they're all going to pretend like it's not happening until they can't deny it anymore, which means the people who don't know any better who are buying these stocks are going to get crushed if and when that bubble finally does burst.
Right. And to your point, and to a story you did probably 2 months ago or 3 months ago on this channel, just talking about all of the inside selling, and it just continues and continues. Like, didn't Michael Dale just sell a lot? I can't remember. But I mean, there's just so many in the comments, people are mentioning Warren Buffett, who continues to sell Bank of America. So, guys, I think that, like you're saying, Jack, the big guys know what's happening. And unfortunately, it's going to be retail and others that are going to get burned so badly here.
Real quick, I want to throw up a comment, but I also wanted to say on Jack's segment that I'm so sick and tired of hearing about Wall Street. It's not our market. All they're doing, they're taking our pensions and they're flooding it into Wall Street. I mean, Wall Street has literally been dooming us hard for at least the last 20 years. I say, I don't have any money in Wall Street. I don't know if you guys have any money in Wall Street. I think we should just close down Wall Street. Close them down, take that money that are being put into the CEO's pockets, right? From like things like TARP, billions of dollars they're stealing from us. Close them down. Put that money into the schools. Let's teach these kids how to do a resume. Let's teach them about credit. Let's teach them about customer service. But this is let's shut them down, man. I mean, I'm so disgusted with I don't even want to talk about Wall Street anymore. It doesn't impact me. I mean, it's like some full game, you know, it's like fake wrestling. It's like fake wrestling, but it's really just fraud. It's not a market it's a fraud. It's fraud. That's
We've
the
got
joke.
an SEC. We have federal regulators. We have people whose job it is to police these crooks, and they don't. All right. What are they doing? Like, take the example of OpenAI, which just occurred to me on my This Week in Doom segment. I didn't include the chaos at OpenAI. Oh my God, how did I miss that?
So much going on.
OpenAI was a charity. It was a nonprofit. All right. And then this week, the story breaks that we're not going to be a nonprofit anymore. We're going to be a for-profit company, and we're seeking $150 billion valuation. More founders, more executives abruptly quit the company. Sam Altman is granting himself 7% equity in the company, which is going to be worth about $10 billion. A guy gets $10 billion richer doing charity work. And what is the SEC doing? They're investigating Sally from Toledo, Ohio, who got a $600 Venmo for something she sold on Etsy. That's what the SEC is digging into. That's what the IRS is digging into, not, oh, the guy who made $10 billion doing charity work. I've done some charity work. I don't have $10 billion. Where's my $10 billion charity work for charity? Like, what the hell is going on in Silicon Valley and in this artificial intelligence boom? And where the hell are the regulators? How did it take the DOJ so long to look into Supermicro that we're just finding out about it this week? I mean, the Orcafin Substack was published back in May. This company already should have been on a watch list because of their prior history of fraud. What the hell is going on in our financial regulators?
Good question.
Nothing has changed since the GFC, Jack, and it's just gotten worse, in my opinion. You know,
really has.
just completely worse. Go ahead, Trav. Sorry.
Hey,
Oh,
James.
no.
Thank
No,
you, James.
yeah, just you know James?
Do I know James?
Yeah.
I don't know James personally. I love the name.
Okay.
James Malarkey.
seemed
Enough of this malarkey. Now, thank you so much, James. I appreciate the
Yes,
super
thank you,
chat
James.
for the channel.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you, James. We appreciate you, brother. And thank you for joining us again on a Saturday. I'm sick of Wall Street. We should shut them down. What else you guys want to talk about? Here's one more
I
comment.
just thought of
Yeah, go
one other story we didn't talk about. And this is, there's just so much going on. Like, honestly, it is just crazy. But, the Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, what's going down there? I mean, this is wild, guys. I mean, just wild. They are after him, so, and a lot of his buddies. I mean, this is going to be a very interesting story to follow. Go ahead, Trav.
It's a case in point to what I was just saying. It's like the same guy that was pointing his finger at someone. He's pointing it, and I'm not going to use any names. I don't want to upset anyone, but the same guy that was supposed to be this righteous man was caught like not only committing like this corruption. He was taking corrupted money, right? He was taking illegal bribes, and he was somehow through fancy accounting, having the city match the fraud. So if he was able to funnel, say, $10,000 in corrupted fraud bond money, he somehow figured out how to get New York to match that money. This guy was going out of his way from, again, innocent till proven guilty. Okay, hopefully he's innocent. And if the prosecutors are wrong, hopefully they get prosecuted. But my God, we need someone to be honest. That's the point I've been trying to make this entire time is, and Jack mentioned it a little bit. Where the hell is the enforcement? Well, the enforcement, either they're corrupt and crooked, or it's not in their job description, right? So they may be held back to do their job from the people that talk. Either way, this
Fraud
is
or no fraud. Unacceptable, Travis. And you zeroed in on what really caught my attention. The fact that he had gotten $10 million in matching funds from the city for that. Why the hell are taxpayer dollars being given to politicians for their campaign money? What if you don't agree with that politician? Why should you have to pay for his campaign? And this is just how the political class enriches themselves. And I'm sure they spun some story like, oh, this is to give the little guy a voice in government. BS. This is about grift and theft. And, you know, that's besides the whole taking foreign campaign contributions, which is illegal. Taxpayer dollars going to campaigns is horse manure. If I was on my channel, I'd be cussing up a storm right now, but I don't want to. I don't want to.
Melody,
I do want to.
Sacred place with my sailor's mouth, but give me a break, guys. Maybe let New Yorkers keep their $10 million instead of giving it to Eric Adams' campaign. I'm sure New Yorkers could use the $10 million bucks.
They sure could. I can tell you that.
yeah, I got a question for Melody after.
Yeah, but I just want to make one comment because I'm seeing it in the comments and I want to talk about this angle as well. I was just in New York last week, or I think it was last week. And, you know, talked to a lot of the cab drivers and things like that. That's how you can always get the best info. But I think there's a general feeling out there that this is a political hit job, that, you know, probably absolutely he did those things wrong, but probably with a kind of a tacit, okay, it's okay to do that. But he made somebody very angry and they're coming after him. I would think that's kind of the sense of what a lot of people are saying in New York, you know, that perhaps maybe he really made one of the cartels very unhappy.
Melody.
But it's a shame, though, that that's where it has to go to get him prosecuted. And what were we going to say, Jack? And I want to end.
I'm shocked and offended at the mere suggestion that the legal system in New York State might somehow be weaponized for political purposes. Or is that what you're? No. This is. I'm outraged at the mere thought of it. That New York, in particular, might use their justice system for political ends. Say it ain't
It's
so.
shocking, Jack. It's just so shocking.
Shocking.
Yeah, he doesn't seem shocked. I think he's being facetious. But I want to ask you something, Melody. Think about this.
Okay.
Say he's guilty. All right. Say I don't know if he is, but let's just hypothetically say he is. What goes on in your mind to so you've already committed fraud. You've already committed it. You've received an illegal bribe. But what goes in your mind to say that's not enough? Like that bribe's not enough. I need more money, and I'm going to have the city double it. I mean, doesn't it? I mean, did I say that because the money doesn't matter anymore? I mean, he's the mayor, right? Like, there's what is going on in these guys' head? Because the money doesn't matter. He's already in power. Why commit a crime when you've already got your money? You're in power. What is wrong with these psychopaths? Why do this, Melody? I don't understand.
So all right, I'll actually give you an answer that probably I don't know if you want it, but I think it's the psychology. I think that a lot of that psychology we talk about is the fear of missing out really is about kind of what's programmed into our DNA of not wanting to be left behind, because when you were left behind, you would die basically. And that's, as hunters and gatherers, if you weren't part of the pack, you were left to on your own and you didn't make it most of the time. And so I think in many ways, what the fear of missing out is just the fear. It's all fueled by fear that, oh my God, I have to get mine because I might be left behind. And I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying that this is also too, I think, the psychology around gambling. People never take money off the table. When they're up. There's something in our brains that just cannot stop. And I think he was surrounded, I think, by a lot of people in our political system that he was just copying what they're doing, and it was okay. And so it's a wild study in humanity, Travis. I don't have a lot of good answers though.
There's no good answer, I don't think.
I have a simple answer. When you go into a voting booth, instead of thinking, what can the government do for me? You should be thinking, how can I protect myself from the government? That simple mentality when you wander into a voting booth. If any of these people accidentally ever wander into a voting booth someday, everybody's like, what can I get the government to give me? The government never gives you anything. They might take $1 from you and give you back 30 cents of it, but they never give you anything. If more people were thinking, how can I protect myself from these crooks? And look at what we've learned about the powerful people, what they've been doing this decade, between creating diseases, secret islands in the Caribbean where they do things to children, the theft on such an unbelievable scale, the inflation they caused.
Getting us addicted to fentanyl. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yet everybody's just like, what can I get from the government? How can I give the government more power to give me stuff? Instead of how can I protect myself from these unbelievable crooks? I think that simple shift in mentality among the electorate could go a long way. If we just strip the power from the government, they'll never stop this outright. People, corruption, crime, greed, they're universal human traits. They're never going to go away. But if we strip the power away from the government, at least it won't be so concentrated there.
Maybe fix our schools too, huh? Teach children why not to lean on the government. That would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
They know nothing else right now. I mean, they literally know nothing else right now.
No, that's another thing. Like, fix our schools. That's always the battle cry for more funding. And do the schools ever get fixed? Ever? Or do we just give them more money and the unions steal it and the administration steals it? And, there's embezzlement because, the superintendent's contractor idiot cousin got the contract to install broken solar panels on the roof and he put $1 million in his pocket along the way. Like all this, it always starts with let's help the children, let's help the poor, let's help the people. And it just turns into a pig trough for crooks every time.
I wonder
Well put, Jack.
I wonder if that's why the school district municipalities are the biggest, because it's the easiest to manipulate taxpayers. It's my children. I want my children to do well. All right. Well, then here's $4 billion in bonds. If you don't accept these bonds, you don't care about your children. Look how easy
That's
that is.
it right there. Oh, if you don't care about the children, if you're not in support of this, or you don't care about the storm victims, if you don't want to just throw tens of billions of dollars at a relief package, or you don't care about the victims of the plague or whatever, they play people like a fiddle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it works every time. All right. Well, that's pretty much everything, Melody. I mean, anything else you want to end on, Melody? Are you going to you staying safe out there? What's going on out there?
I would just say, that this is, again, this story is developing, and I think we're all going to be very shocked and surprised as camera crews get to these places. I mean, I'm hearing from all kinds of folks that know my family of people being, completely like up on a mountain, no way out and no communication. And we haven't heard from them in a day or whatever, because there is literally no way out. And so, just everybody stay safe out there. But I think what I want to say mostly is I'm so grateful to the community who helped me to get prepared, who, kind of wrote it out. We all wrote it out together, messaging one another. And I think it just shows you the strength of community. Even if you can't be here to help the people physically, you can help, by just being there, reporting the news, getting out resources to people. I see Kenny Cat PhD in the comments. He posted this morning a tool where people could track the flooding so you could see that it was supposed to be coming down. I mean, it's things like that, sharing information with the community that makes me so appreciative of all of the people that join us every week. And so any last words, Travis and Jack?
No.
Okay.
So you're telling me there's a mountain in Tennessee where nobody can get to you and the cell phones don't work and they can't. Is there room for one more on top of this mountain? Asking for a friend. I'm sorry. I would use that. I wouldn't mind that. But no, seriously, I hope everybody's okay, Melody. And I'm glad you're okay. And everybody be safe. Do not drive into a flood.
Yeah. Turn around, don't drown. Turn around, don't drown. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we were away last week, but we had a lot of traveling. Looking forward to seeing you again next week. And always remember, math matters.